It began inside a dying alien starship drifting helplessly in the dark void between galaxies, a place so empty and silent that even the stars themselves seemed afraid to shine there. And as the HFY crew huddled together in the flickering blue light of their failing control room, a cold sense of doom settled over every heart aboard the vessel. The kind of fear that clung to the skin and made the air feel too thin to breathe because the oxygen systems were failing, the engines were dead. The navigation systems were offline, and the ship had been spinning slowly for 73 long hours without receiving a single response to their desperate distress calls that had been echoing through the blackness like the cries of ghosts trying to reach a world that no longer existed. And every time the beacon pulsed, another wave of hopelessness spread across the crew because the region they were trapped in was known across the galaxy as the Dead Zone. A place where ships vanished without a trace, where shadows moved between the stars, where every distress call was swallowed by the void, and where no rescue ever came. And although the HFY captain tried to appear strong by standing at the center of the dying ship with his back straight and his voice steady, inside he was falling apart piece by piece because he knew, just like the others knew, that this was where their story would end, abandoned, forgotten, lost forever in a part of space no one dared to enter. And he could hear the trembling breaths of his crew as the youngest among them cried softly, believing this would be his last night alive. But the captain forced himself to remain calm even though terror clawed at his chest, telling them they would find a way out even though he knew there was no way out. And hours passed slowly, painfully, until finally, on the 74th hour, something happened that froze every living being on the ship in place. The distress beacon flickered red, a color no one had seen before, which meant only one thing in the ancient emergency systems. Something had heard them, something had detected their signal, something was close enough to respond, and the entire crew gasped as the captains stared at the glowing red light that pulsed slowly like the heartbeat of a giant beast waiting outside their hull. But even as hope rose in their chests, nothing appeared, no ships, no broadcasts, no voices. Only a silence so deep it felt unnatural, like the void itself was holding its breath, watching them, studying them, and the captain whispered into the dark, "Is someone out there?" But no answer came, nothing except the echo of his own voice bouncing back off the hollow metal walls of the dying ship. And then, slowly, impossibly, terrifyingly, the stars outside the viewing window began to dim, one by one, as if something enormous, something without shape or mercy, was blocking them from view, swallowing the light of the universe, bending the darkness around itself like a cloak. And the HFY crew backed away from the window as a giant shadow drifted across the star field. A shape so massive and so silent that it blotted out entire constellations at once, and the ship's sensors buzzed weakly, trying to lock onto the object, failing again and again until suddenly they snapped into focus and the ship revealed itself. A massive vessel with no markings, no known design, just a cold, black surface covered in faint glowing lines that pulsed slowly like veins carrying energy through the body of an ancient titan, and the HFY panicked as whispers filled the control room. Is it the thing that eats ships? Is it the monster of the Dead Zone? Because legends told of a great shadow that hunted in this forgotten part of space, devouring ships and leaving nothing behind but silence, and as the giant vessel came closer, its scale became even more terrifying, dwarfing their own ship by 10 times, maybe 20 times, its hull completely smooth, almost organic, as if it had not been built but grown in the depths of the cosmos. And the captain felt his throat tighten as the scanners locked again. This time successfully, this time revealing the truth that sent a cold shiver through every member of the crew. The ship belonged to humans, a human vessel traveling in a region of space where humans never traveled, where no one traveled, a human ship so strange and so advanced that even the HFY captain whispered, trembling, "This can't be real." Because humans were known as explorers, yes, known as brave, kind, curious. But humans did not have ships like this. Humans did not enter the spaces between galaxies, but this one had, and the sight of it stirred something deep, something primal, something that felt like awe and fear mixing together into a single overwhelming sensation. Because standing before them was not just a ship. It was a silent colossus carved from the night itself, and as it drifted closer, the air inside the alien ship seemed to vibrate as a soft hum passed through their hull. And the HFY pressed their hands against the walls as the vibrations grew stronger, not harmful, not painful, but strange, almost gentle, almost like someone was knocking softly, asking to be let in. And then, without warning, the entire ship filled with a calm, warm voice that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. "This is the human vessel Solace 9. Do not be afraid. We are here." The THYRVAL froze, shocked, overwhelmed, hearts pounding as they stared at one another with wide eyes because the voice sounded so calm, so steady, so human, as if the person speaking was standing right beside them, whispering reassurance into their bones, and the captain quickly activated the comms system with trembling fingers, stammering, "How did you find us? How did you reach this place?" And the human ship replied instantly, "We heard you." But those words only raised more fear because hearing a distress signal in the dead zone was supposed to be impossible. Nothing traveled through this region, not light, not echoes, not signals, yet somehow the human vessel had heard them, and for the first time hope flickered inside the THYRVAL hearts. But before they could ask more questions, something strange happened outside. The glowing lines on the human ship brightened, pulsing in perfect sync with the heartbeat of every alien on board the stranded vessel, as if the human ship was alive, listening, breathing with them, and the captain stepped closer to the window, whispering, This ship is not normal." And then the stars shifted again, bending slightly, revealing that the human vessel was positioning itself directly above the alien ship like a giant shield against the darkness. And despite the fear, despite the confusion, despite everything they didn't understand, one truth filled the THYRVAL hearts and brought tears to their eyes. They were not alone, not anymore, because when everyone else ignored their cries for help, when the galaxy named this place a graveyard, when despair began to choke the life out of them, someone, somewhere, still heard them, still cared enough to come, still stepped into the dead zone for strangers, and that someone was human. The species everyone underestimated, the people everyone assumed, were too soft, too weak, too peaceful to face the horrors of the universe. Yet here they were, standing between the THYRVAL and death, without asking for anything in return, without hesitation, without fear, and as the human ship drifted even closer, glowing brighter, shielding them completely from the darkness outside, the THYRVAL captain felt something he had not felt since he was a child. Safety, pure and overwhelming safety. And he whispered the words that every crew member silently thought but did not dare to say, "This is the moment everything changes." The moment the human voice faded, a heavy silence filled the dying THYRVAL ship, a silence so thick and deep that every alien could hear their own heartbeat pounding inside their chest as the giant human vessel drifted even closer, its black surface shimmering like liquid night under starlight, the faint glowing lines across its hull pulsing gently as if the entire ship was made of breath and memory instead of metal. And as the THYRVAL watched in disbelief, the human vessel extended a long, smooth structure from its underside, neither mechanical nor organic, something in between, something that moved with soft, fluid grace, curling around the broken alien ship like a protective arm, holding them with a gentleness they had never experienced before in deep space. And every alien felt a strange warmth spread through the hull, through the air, through their bodies. A warmth that soothed their shaking nerves and eased the crushing fear that had been strangling them for hours, and for the first time since they entered the dead zone, some of the crew began to breathe again, truly breathe, while others sobbed softly, not from fear now, but from relief so overwhelming it hurt, and the captain pressed a hand to the window, whispering, why would humans come here for us?" Because the galaxy believed humans were simple explorers, peaceful travelers, good-hearted but unprepared for the horrors of deep space, yet this ship, this impossible, silent colossus, had entered a region where no empire dared to go, and it did so alone just to answer a signal from strangers. And before the captain could speak again, the human voice returned, calm as always, warm as always, wrapping around their hearts like a blanket of safety. "We will tow you to safety. Do not be afraid." But fear returned anyway, sharp and cold. Because as the human ship began to pull them forward, the stars outside shifted again, not as light this time, but as movement, as long, twisting shadows that slid across the void like living snakes made of darkness, their shapes bending unnaturally, their bodies stretching across the starfield in a way that made the universe itself seem wrong. And the THYRVAL screamed as one of the shadows drifted close enough that its outline pressed against their hull, leaving marks of frozen black frost that spread like veins, trying to seep through the metal. And the youngest alien sobbed hysterically, "It found us. It's here." The thing from the stories. while the others grabbed whatever tools they could find. Even though they knew nothing they held could fight something that looked like a hole in the universe shaped like a predator. And the captain shouted into the comms, "Human vessel. Something is here. Something is," but before he could finish, the shadow slammed its body against the hull, shaking the entire ship with a force that knocked the crew off their feet. And the lights flickered violently as the hull groaned like a dying beast. And then suddenly a blinding flash of blue light erupted from the giant human ship. A pulse so bright it cut through the darkness like lightning tearing apart the night, and the shadow creature recoiled violently, shrieking in a soundless scream that echoed only inside their minds, twisting and curling away from the light as if the human ship was burning its very existence. And every HFY clung to the walls in terror as the pulse washed over them, warm and safe, pushing the darkness back, clearing a small space of safety around them like a protective bubble carved out of pure light. And the captain whispered hoarsely, What is that thing?" But the human voice replied with only 3 words. "Do not look." The command froze the captain's blood because it was not harsh, not angry, not commanding. It was filled with fear, real fear. The kind that humans hid behind calm voices. The kind that meant the danger outside was far worse than the HFY understood. And the captain backed away from the window, trembling, and told his crew to cover the viewports. And as they did, another shadow slammed into the side of the ship, sending cracks across the hull. And panic spread again because their ship would not survive many more hits, but before despair could drown them again, the human vessel released another pulse of blue light, stronger than the first, brighter, like a star being born inside the void, and the shadows scattered like smoke blown by a hurricane, twisting violently as they fled into the darkness. And this time when the light faded, the human voice spoke again, softer, almost sad, "You should not have come here. This place does not belong to the living." The HFY stared at each other with wide, terrified eyes, realizing the humans knew the dead zone better than anyone, realizing that the giant human ship was not lost, not exploring. It had come here on purpose for them, and the captain's voice cracked as he whispered, "Humans, what have you seen out here?" But no answer came, only the soft hum of the human ship holding them, towing them forward through the impossible darkness, protecting them from things that should not exist. And as the captain gazed at the glowing lines pulsing gently across the human vessel's hull, he felt a strange pain in his chest, a mix of awe, gratitude, and something deeper, something ancient, as if the universe had finally revealed a secret it had been hiding from the galaxy for centuries. Humans did not just explore the unknown, they faced it. Not because they were fearless, but because they refused to leave anyone alone in the dark. As the giant human vessel pulled the broken HFY ship deeper through the dead zone, the darkness outside thickened like oil, swirling and twisting around them as if the void itself was alive and angry about losing its prey. And the HFY clung to anything they could hold as the hull shook in long, low groans that sounded like the ship was crying. But the human ship held them steady, its glowing energy slowly spreading around the alien vessel like a cocoon of warm light that pushed back the blackness inch by inch. And even though the HFY felt safer, a heavy fear sat deep in their bones because the more light the human ship released, the more the shadows responded, moving faster, sharper, with shapes turning into claws, wings, and long twisting bodies that slithered between the stars. And the captain whispered to himself, "This place, it was never empty, it was waiting." And before he could steady his trembling hands, a sudden tremor shook the entire ship as the external lights flickered violently, revealing for a single heartbeat a colossal dark figure pressing its face against the viewport. A face made of swirling shadow with empty sockets that stared into the ship as if it could smell their fear. And screams filled the bridge as the figure dissolved and reformed outside, stretching its shape across the hull like fog with teeth. And the youngest HFY collapsed to the floor, shaking uncontrollably, whispering, "We shouldn't be here, we shouldn't be here. It sees us, it knows us." But before the panic could consume the entire crew, the human ship's voice echoed again through the failing speakers, calm but sharper this time, as if holding back urgency. "Remain calm. Keep low. Do not respond to the shadows." But the captain shouted in fear, "It's tearing at our hull. We're going to be crushed." And another tremor slammed the ship as the metal screeched like something massive was scraping its claws across the surface, and the entire HFY crew fell against the walls, gasping as the lights went red, oxygen dropped again, and systems began to shut down one by one. But right then a new sound came, Soft at first, a gentle vibration, like a heartbeat humming through the air, and then growing stronger, deeper, until the whole ship felt like it was resting against the chest of some massive being, and the human vessel brightened again, its glowing lines flashing in rhythmic pulses that traveled across its colossal body like waves of blue fire awakening inside its veins. And when the next shadow leapt toward them, the human ship sent out a concentrated burst of golden-white energy, a beam so bright it ripped through the dark figure, scattering it into thousands of pieces that evaporated into dust. And the captain stared in stunned disbelief because the human vessel wasn't just a ship, it fought like a living creature defending its young. And when the glow faded, the human voice spoke softly again. But this time there was a crack of pain in it. Those things are old. Older than your maps. Older than your stars. We were not meant to disturb them. Silence filled the HFY ship as the meaning sank in, and the captain stepped closer to the comm panel, pushing down tears of exhaustion as he whispered, Why come here? Why risk your crew, for us? And the human voice hesitated for a long moment before answering in a tone that carried a weight the HFY could feel in their bones. Because no call deserves silence. Those words hit every alien like a spear through the heart, filling them with a strange mixture of guilt and admiration because the human ship hadn't been passing by. It had come because of them, because they were dying, because they were alone, because they were afraid, and as the captain wiped his eyes, the ship jerked sharply to the right, slamming all crew against the bulkhead as something enormous struck the human vessel outside. A shape so massive it could only be seen when the ship's glow flashed across it, revealing a creature that looked like a planet-sized shadow with dozens of long tendrils dripping darkness like blood, coiling and uncoiling around the human vessel with crushing force, and the captain screamed, It's killing them! As the black tendrils squeezed the human ship, causing blue sparks to explode from its surface and large cracks to form along the glowing lines. But even as the creature attempted to crush it, the human vessel wrapped its arm-like structure tighter around the HFY ship, shielding them, refusing to let go, refusing to let danger touch them. And the humans whispered one word through the comms, a word that made every alien tremble and cry at the same time, Hold on. Then the human ship unleashed a roar made of pure energy, a shockwave that tore through the dark creature, breaking its massive tendrils apart in a split second, sending the monster retreating into the depths of the void with a scream that rattled every bone in the alien crew's bodies. And though the threat vanished, the captain's hope shattered as he saw the human vessel dim sharply, its glowing lines flickering weakly like dying embers trying desperately to stay alive. And the human voice returned, faint and trembling, We can still make it. We just need time. The HFY fell silent as they realized the human ship had taken the full damage for them, had stood between them and death, had allowed itself to be nearly destroyed so they could live. And the captain pressed a hand against the window, whispering with a breaking heart. Why would humans do this for us? But no answer came, not because the humans didn't want to speak, but because their ship was barely holding together, flickering, struggling, fighting to keep going as the darkness circled again like predators waiting for a weakened prey to fall. And as the HFY watched the human vessel dim and shake under the endless weight of the void, one truth echoed inside every heart aboard their dying ship. As the human vessel struggled forward through the endless dark, its once bright glowing lines now flickering like dying stars fighting their last breath, the HFY crew felt a fear deeper than anything they had known before, not for themselves this time, but for the humans who were holding their ship together with a strength that looked more like sacrifice than survival. And every alien stared at the giant vessel through the viewport, watching cracks spread across its smooth black surface like fractures in glass, leaking bright blue energy that dripped into the void and vanished instantly. And the captain clutched the railing with shaking hands as he whispered, They cannot survive this, their ship is breaking. And the youngest alien cried out, Please, tell them to let us go, they will die because of us. But the captain shook his head, voice breaking, Humans will not let us die. Not while they are still breathing. And as if the ship itself heard his words, the glowing lines pulsed once more, forcing light through the cracks in a desperate attempt to stay alive. And the HFY all felt something new then, shame. Because in all their history, in all their pride, in all their technology and wisdom, they had never stepped into a place like this for another species. They had never sacrificed their ships for strangers. They had never entered death for someone else's hope. Yet humans had done it without hesitation, and as they drifted deeper into the dead zone, the void around them began to twist again, thin tendrils of darkness rising like smoke pillars from the distant stars, curling toward them like hungry beasts tasting the air, and the human vessel jerked violently as a small shadow latched onto its hull, digging in like a parasite, and the ship groaned in pain. A long, low vibration that made the HFY collapse to the floor with hands over their ears. And the captain screamed into the comms, "Human vessel. It's on your hull. It's pulling you apart." But the human voice answered with a calmness that shattered him completely, "We know. Stay inside. Do not open your doors." The shadow grew larger, spreading across the hull like ink spilling through cracks, darkening the glowing lines, dimming them faster, and the HFY scientist analyzed the readings with trembling fingers before gasping. "It's draining their ship, like it's feeding on their energy." And panic grew again as the human vessel released another pulse of blue light, trying desperately to shake the shadow off, but the pulse this time was weaker, thinner, fading before it reached the creature. And the HFY felt the horrible truth. Humans were running out of strength, running out of power, running out of time, and if the humans died here, the HFY would be trapped forever. The dead zone would swallow them whole, and no one would ever know what happened to either species. And the captain clenched his fists, whispering into the comms with tears in his eyes, "Please, let us go, save yourselves." But the human voice returned with a softness that felt like a hand on the heart. "We do not abandon people just because it is hard." That sentence broke something inside every HFY soldier. They had come from a culture of strength, logic, and survival, a culture where helping strangers was rare, where danger was avoided, not challenged, where fear dictated behavior, not courage. But in that moment they understood what made humans different, what made them special, what made them powerful in ways no empire could ever replicate. And the captain swallowed hard, staring at the dimming human vessel as he whispered, "Humans, you are more than we ever believed." And then everything shook. As a larger shadow slammed into the human ship, its enormous body stretching across the hull like a living cloak of night, crushing the structure beneath it, bending metal, ripping open parts of the black surface as electric blue sparks burst into the void, and the HFY screamed as alarms blared, their ship swinging wildly as the human vessel lost control, spinning them deeper into the darkness, and for a moment, a single terrifying moment, it seemed like the humans would break completely, that the pressure and the darkness and the monsters would tear their ship into pieces. But then something unexpected happened. The human ship released a sound, not a mechanical blast, not an alarm, not a pulse, but a heartbeat. A deep, powerful heartbeat that shook the void and rippled across space like a wave of living force, and every shadow froze for a split second, as if shocked, as if confused, as if hearing something ancient and familiar, and the glowing lines on the human vessel brightened again. This time pulsing in perfect rhythm with the heartbeat, and the HFY scientist whispered in awe, "The ship, it is alive, it's fighting back." And the captain nodded slowly as tears streamed down his face, because he finally understood what Solace 9 truly was, not just a ship, not just technology, not just machinery. It was a guardian built from human courage, human hope, human refusal to give up, a vessel with a living core designed to survive places no living thing should survive. And as the shadows lunged again, the human ship roared with another pulse, shaking them off for a moment, dragging the HFY vessel forward with everything it had left. Engines burning, hull cracking, systems collapsing. Yet still refusing to let go, still refusing to stop, still choosing life over death, hope over fear, strangers over safety, and as the HFY watched the impossible scene, the broken human vessel dragging them through darkness like a dying titan protecting its child, the captain whispered with trembling lips, "Humans, you are the light in the dark," and for the first time since entering the dead zone, he believed they might survive, not because their ships were strong, not because their systems were functional, not because of luck, but because humans had come. The dead zone grew darker and heavier around them, as if the universe itself was tightening, squeezing their two ships deeper into its silent, hungry void, and the HFY watched helplessly as the massive human vessel Solace 9, once bright, powerful, unstoppable, now drifted forward like a wounded giant barely holding onto life, its glowing lines flickering unevenly, dimming faster with every second, cracks widening. Across its black surface as blue energy leaked out in slow, painful streams that looked almost like blood spilling into the darkness, and each time a crack formed, the HFY felt their hearts break a little because they knew those wounds were meant for them, not the humans, and the captain pressed his palm to the cold window, whispering with a voice full of shame. This is our fault. They are dying because of us. But then, almost as if in answer, the human ship pulsed faintly, sending a small wave of golden light across the space between them. A soft reassurance that felt like the touch of a warm hand on a trembling shoulder, and the human voice returned, weaker now but still steady, still human, still kind, focus on breathing. You are safe. You will live. Those words shattered the last layer of pride inside every HFY warrior, because no one had ever spoken to them like that. Not their own commanders, not their own leaders, not their own people, and the youngest alien, tears streaming down his face, whispered, Why do humans care this much? And the captain, with shaking hands, replied, Because humans do not measure worth by species, they measure worth by who needs help. And before he could say more, the ship jerked violently as another shadow slammed into them, clawing across the hull with long streaks of darkness that left behind deep wounds in the metal. And alarms blared, oxygen levels dropped again, sparks rained from the ceiling. But this time the human ship moved first, snapping a wing-like energy shield over the HFY vessel, absorbing the hit completely even though the impact tore a massive chunk of its own armor free, sending shards of black metal spinning into the void like dying stars, and the captain screamed, No! You will break apart, and for the first time, the human voice faltered, sounding like someone gasping through pain. Hold, until you are clear. The HFY scientist, analyzing the energy readings with trembling fingers, whispered in horror. Their core is failing. If it collapses, the whole ship will fall apart. And the captain, desperate, shouted back into the comms, Human vessel, let us go. Save yourselves. You have done enough. But the human voice responded with a gentle firmness that made their hearts ache. If we let go now, you will die. We do not choose that. A heavy silence followed, broken only by the sound of the hull groaning under the stress of the void. And then something worse happened. The darkness around them thickened into a swirling vortex, a massive whirlpool of shadow pulling them toward a central point where the void looked like a mouth, wide and endless, ready to swallow both ships whole, and the HFY captain felt his lungs tighten as he whispered, The dead zone is angry, it is pulling us in. But the human vessel surged forward, pulling the alien ship with it, engines burning brighter than they had any right to, its entire frame trembling like a creature pushing through its final limit, and the human voice, now barely audible, whispered, Almost there. But the vortex grew stronger, spinning faster, dragging them backward, pulling them down, and the HFY clung to the walls with white knuckles as their ship tilted violently. Alarms screaming, systems failing, and panic erupted as someone shouted, We're going to be ripped apart. But then, right when the vortex was about to swallow them, Solace 9 did something the HFY had never seen before. The human ship transformed. Its glowing lines shot upward like veins of fire. Its hull expanded. Its dark plates shifted like armor waking from ancient sleep. A bright, golden-white heart of energy opened at the center of the ship, shining brighter than any star in the region. And the HFY realized the horrifying truth. The human ship was burning its own life to save them. The golden light expanded, growing into a giant barrier of pure energy that slammed into the vortex, forcing it back, tearing the shadows apart as the light spread through the void like a sunrise pushing away eternal night. And the HFY crew shielded their eyes as the brightness filled the universe around them. And in that blinding moment, they heard the human captain's last full-strength message, No one dies alone in the dark. Not while humanity breathes. The vortex shrieked silently as it collapsed inward, unable to withstand the human ship's heart, and the shadows fled into cracks of space like terrified animals, leaving the two ships drifting in a suddenly quiet void, glowing faintly in the golden aftermath of the blast. And when the light faded, the HFY saw the Solace 9 clearly, and their hearts shattered completely. The great human vessel was barely holding together. Half its hull was gone. Its glowing veins were dim. Its protective arm around the HFY ship was cracked and trembling. And its energy heart was flickering like a candle fighting the wind. The captain sank to the floor, tears falling freely as he whispered, Humans, you gave everything for us, and the youngest alien sobbed, "If they die, we can never repay this." But even then, even at the edge of death, Solace 9 still whispered through the comms, "Do not fear, we continue until you are home." And the HFY realized something that would change their entire species forever. Humans were not just rescuers. They were protectors of the lost, champions of the forgotten. And the only species brave enough to hold the light against the dark, even when the light was almost gone. The dead zone fell into an eerie stillness after the golden blast faded, a silence so deep it felt like all sound in the universe had been swallowed whole, leaving only the faint trembling hum of the wounded human vessel as it dragged the HFY ship forward with the last strands of its remaining strength. And inside the alien ship the crew stood frozen, staring at the dim, broken silhouette of Solace 9 as it drifted ahead like a titan brought to its knees, its once powerful glow reduced to a weak flicker, its armor torn open in massive fractures that exposed the faint heartbeat of the living core inside, beating slower each moment like a dying star collapsing into itself. And the captain pressed a hand to his chest as he felt the rhythm of that heartbeat echo inside his own body, as if the human ship was sharing its final breaths with them, giving them warmth even as it bled away its life, and tears filled his eyes because he knew, every alien aboard knew. This ship had given everything it had, burned every last thread of energy, emptied its very soul just to keep them alive in a place where nothing else would have tried, and the young HFY engineer collapsed to his knees, shaking, whispering, "We are monsters, humans saved us and we let them destroy themselves." But the captain knelt beside him, voice trembling yet soft. "No, we cannot change the past, but we can honor their courage." And the boy sobbed harder because honoring courage felt useless when the vessel that saved them was dying right before their eyes. And then a soft whisper echoed through the ship, the human voice. "Faint. Weak. Struggling. You are almost safe." The entire HFY crew leaned in, desperate, hearts breaking as they heard the exhaustion in that voice, heard the pain beneath each word, heard the fading heartbeat of a being who refused to stop fighting even as everything inside it collapsed. And the captain reached for the comm console, voice cracking, "Human vessel, please, stop. You will die if you continue. Let us drift, save your energy, we beg you." But the reply came like a soft, final smile, "We don't abandon people." Those 4 words crushed the HFY to their core because they understood the meaning. Humans would rather die than leave someone alone in the dark, and before anyone could speak again, a violent tremor shook both ships as the darkness behind them began to twist, swirl, and compress into a long, thin crack in space, a tear that pulsed like a black heartbeat, and out of that crack came something worse than the shadows, silence. A silence so heavy it pressed against their skulls. A silence that drank light, hope, sound, everything. The dead zone was healing itself, closing behind them, sealing them out, or sealing something inside. The captain stared in horror as the crack expanded like a mouth preparing to swallow them, pulling at both ships with a gravity-like force that bent the metal beams inside the HFY vessel and made the Solace 9 shudder violently, pieces of its hull tearing away and flying backward into the crack where they vanished in an instant, and the HFY captain screamed, "We can't escape this." But the human ship did not stop, instead igniting what little energy it had left in a desperate surge that turned the faint glow of its lines into a harsh, painful brightness that shook violently as if the ship was ripping itself apart just to move 1 more inch, and the human voice whispered again, almost too faint to hear, "Hold, together." Then suddenly a large piece of the human vessel's outer armor broke free, spiraling away and revealing the living core inside, a glowing golden sphere, cracked and pulsing erratically like a heart struggling through its final beats, and the HFY gasped. As the sphere dimmed again, its light flickering like a candle in a storm, and the scientist whispered, voice full of grief, "If that core dies, the humans die, the ship dies, we all die." And for a moment, hopelessness returned, sinking into every chest like cold poison. But before despair could consume them, the impossible happened. The golden core inside the human vessel flared brightly one last time, shooting waves of light through the entire ship, sealing cracks for a heartbeat, restoring the glowing lines for a second, just long enough for Solace 9 to pull them past the edge of the dead zone, past the reach of the shadows, past the pull of the crack which snapped shut behind them with a thunderous silence that felt like a universe exhaling, and the HFY were thrown forward as their ship suddenly drifted into calm, star-filled space, real space, safe space, and the entire crew collapsed in relief, sobbing, laughing, trembling, overwhelmed that they had survived, that they had escaped, that they were alive. But their relief turned to shock when they turned back to the human vessel. Solace 9 hung motionless, dark, silent. Its glowing lines were gone, its armor was cold. Its living core dimmed to a faint ember, and the captain choked on his breath as he whispered, "No, no, 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 not like this," because the previous glow, the heartbeat, the warmth that surrounded them, had all faded, replaced by a stillness that felt like death, and the youngest alien screamed, "The humans saved us and now they are dead." But the captain silenced him with a trembling hand, voice barely audible as he whispered, "We do not know yet, do not speak death over them." But his voice shook because he too felt the terror of the truth. The humans might have burned themselves away to save them. And as the dark, silent human ship floated before them like a fallen guardian, every HFY felt the same crushing emotion rising in their hearts. Not fear, not despair, but grief for the ones who refused to leave them in the dark. The HFY ship drifted slowly in the quiet calm of normal space, the stars shining gently around them like distant lanterns, peaceful and warm. Yet none of the crew felt peace, none felt warmth, because their eyes were locked on the silent, broken human vessel Solace 9 floating before them like a fallen guardian who had given every last breath to keep them alive. And the crushing weight of guilt settled so heavily on their hearts that many fell to their knees, trembling with the unbearable truth that humans had sacrificed everything for strangers who had nothing to offer in return. And the captain stood frozen at the viewport, his hand pressed against the glass as he whispered, "Please, please move, show us you are alive." But the human ship did not glow, did not shake, did not breathe, and its once living energy core flickered weakly every few seconds like a dying ember struggling to decide whether to live or fade. And the youngest HFY cried openly, shaking so hard he could barely stand, "We killed them. We killed them by needing help. We should never have called." But the captain grabbed him and pulled him close, voice breaking, "No, humans chose this. Humans stepped into the dark for us. Humans fight their battles with heart, not with safety." And as the crew gathered around the broken windows, staring at the motionless human ship, a sudden soft vibration pulsed through the void, so gentle they almost missed it, like a sigh from something enormous and tired, and the HFY gasped as the golden core inside Solace 9 flickered again. Not bright, not strong, but real, alive, struggling, and the captain fell to his knees, tears streaming down his face as he whispered, "Come on, come back, please come back." And the crew held hands, forming a circle, trembling as they watched that dim spark flicker faster. But each flicker was weaker than the last, slower, like a heartbeat fading away, and the silence inside the HFY ship grew heavier, thicker, suffocating, until even the youngest stopped crying and stood perfectly still as if afraid that making a sound would extinguish the last flicker of the human ship's life. And then, all at once, the golden ember inside Solace 9 dimmed to almost nothing, a tiny speck of light barely visible through the cracked hull. And that was the moment everyone understood the truth. The human vessel had reached the absolute end of its strength. The captain placed a hand over his heart, lowering his head as he whispered, "We will carry your story, we will tell the galaxy. You are the bravest souls we have ever known." But before grief could fully consume them, a sudden deep rumble echoed through the void, not from the HFY ship, not from space, but from inside Solace 9 itself, a long, trembling vibration that felt like a dying giant forcing itself to rise one last time. And then the faint ember pulsed again, brighter this time. Then brighter still, and the HFY gasped as the golden light inside the human vessel grew stronger, spreading through the cracked veins like fire returning to frozen rivers, slow at first, then faster, reclaiming inch by inch of the ship's interior, and the youngest alien fell to his knees, crying, "They're alive. They're alive," and the captain pressed his forehead against the window, sobbing with relief as he watched the shattered veins of blue and gold slowly relight across the human vessel's hull. Not evenly, not fully, but enough to prove the humans had not given up, had not died in the dark, had not surrendered to the void. And as the glowing veins pulsed again, a single, broken whisper came through the comm system, so faint it could barely be heard, yet powerful enough to send every HFY into tears. "Still here." Those two words stabbed deep into every heart because they were filled with pain, exhaustion, and courage so raw it hurt to hear. And the HFY crew pressed their hands against the comm panel as if trying to touch the humans through the sound, whispering, "We are here too. We are with you. Please hold on." And the human voice, shaking, weak, cracked, whispered again, "Is your ship stable?" And the captain choked on his breath as he answered, "Yes, because of you. Because you saved us. Please stop. Please rest. Please don't push more." But the human voice continued, trembling like someone speaking through blood. "Not safe yet. Danger. Still near." And the HFY froze, terror crawling back into their bones as they realized the humans were still afraid of something. Something beyond the dead zone. Something that followed them out or something waiting ahead. Something the humans could sense even in their broken state. And before the captain could ask what danger they meant, the golden core inside Solace 9 flared brighter, then dimmer, like a dying star blinking desperately against collapse, and the human voice whispered one final sentence that sent cold fear through every alien heart. The moment the human voice whispered that they were not out yet, a cold silence swept across the HFY ship, a silence filled not with fear this time, but with a deep, painful respect, because even in their shattered state, even as their vessel dangled between life and death, the humans were still thinking about protecting others before themselves. And as the golden core of Solace 9 flickered weakly in the darkness, every HFY pressed closer to the window, watching with trembling hearts, praying in their own languages for the human ship to hold on just a little longer. But the peace of that moment shattered violently as a deep cracking sound rolled through space, like stone breaking underwater, and the stars ahead of them warped, bending and twisting into long, distorted streaks as if something enormous was clawing at reality itself. And the captain's blood ran cold as he gasped, "Not again." The dead zone followed us, because a long, jagged tear began forming in space. A thin black line opening into a swirling wound of darkness, the same kind that had tried to swallow them earlier, a doorway for the shadows to return, and panic erupted as alarms blared, lights flickered, and the HFY ship shook violently. But before fear could paralyze them, the human vessel moved, slow but determined, dragging its broken body in front of the HFY ship like a wounded protector shielding a child from a storm, and the captain screamed, "No. You cannot fight again. You cannot survive another hit." But the human ship ignored him, its glowing veins pulsing painfully as the golden core brightened again, flickering like a dying fire trying to burn one last time, and the human voice returned, barely a whisper now, each word drenched in exhaustion and quiet bravery. "We finish what we started," and Solace 9 pushed itself forward, placing its broken hull between the Terran space and the alien ship, and the tear widened, releasing long tendrils of darkness that curled outward like hungry claws reaching for fresh prey, and the HFY watched in horror as 3 massive tendrils lashed toward the human vessel, striking with enough force to shatter mountains. But the human ship did not retreat, did not flinch, did not hesitate. It took the impact full force, its armor exploding outward in clouds of molten metal and blue sparks, and the HFY screamed in helpless agony as the tendrils wrapped around Solace 9, crushing what remained of its structure, pulling at the glowing core like they wanted to rip the heart out of the ship. But the golden sphere inside the human vessel flared brighter, brighter, blindingly bright, and the human voice whispered one last time, filled with a soft sadness that made every alien cry, "Thank you for believing." And then the golden core exploded, not in violence, but in light, an enormous sphere of pure human energy expanding outward in a silent wave that filled the universe around them with warmth, with safety, with a brilliance that pushed back the darkness like sunrise breaking 1,000 nights at once, and the tendrils dissolved instantly, scattering like smoke in a hurricane. The Terran space shrieked silently as it collapsed inward, sealing shut with a final crack that echoed through the void like the universe slamming a door. And when the light finally faded, the HFY ship drifted alone in quiet, peaceful space, stars shining gently as if nothing had happened. But Solace 9 was gone. Nothing remained. No debris, no wreckage, no core, just silence. And the HFY broke. The youngest alien collapsed to the floor, sobbing uncontrollably, pounding his fists into the metal as he screamed, "WHY did they save us? WHY did they give everything?" And the others cried silently, their bodies shaking from grief so deep it felt carved into their bones. But the captain stood motionless at the window, tears streaming down his face as he whispered. Because that is what humans are. They do not abandon the lost. They do not run from the dark. They do not wait for someone else to act, even when the price is everything. And the crew slowly gathered around him, placing trembling hands on the glass as if touching the place where the human ship had been, their hearts aching with the weight of a sacrifice they would never be able to repay. And for a long time the ship drifted silently, the crew too broken to speak, too emotional to move, until at last the captain straightened his back, wiping his tears, voice steady but full of sorrow as he said, "Prepare a full transmission. We will tell every star, every empire, every world what happened here." And the crew looked at him, confused. "What will we say?" And he answered with a voice full of respect, grief, and hope, "We will tell them the truth. Humans walked into the dead zone when no one else would. Humans fought the darkness alone. Humans gave their lives so we could live. Humanity is not weak. Humanity is the light." And with shaking hands, the captain activated the long-range broadcast, sending their message to every corner of the galaxy, a message that would echo through time. "We were abandoned in deep space." And a human ship answered. And somewhere, far beyond the stars, the universe remembered the name Solace 9 forever.